Business Live today is brought to you by GCB Bank.
Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back to the details. Now, illegal miners on AngloGold Obuasi mine concession will be forced out by next Monday if they do not relocate. That's the warning from the Minerals Commission following the completion of work by the Movement Committee, which has recommended for part of the government 60% of the concession to be allocated to the miners. This is, however, on condition that these miners regularize their operations. Chief Executive of the Minerals Commission, Dr. Tony Obin, spoke with Joy Business after a press conference today.
They occupied the place illegally because on our records, that place is for AngloGold Ashanti. However, rather than use unnecessary force, brute force to get them out, the idea was to negotiate them out because we did not want to spill the blood of one single Ghanaian who had gone there to eke out a living. So it was a balancing act. It was something that you use your common sense to say, look, these people have gone there. You could have used brute force to get them out, but you have, the option of dialoguing them out. It's taking some time, but the time is now for them to move. Now we've got into a time where we could no longer contain their presence there. So by Monday, the 10th of October, we expect them to move. And this has been the result of long negotiations. A committee set, the movement committee as we called it, set dialoguing with all the stakeholders, including the chiefs, the security forces, the operators themselves, the Association of Small-Scale Miners in Obuasi, the National Association, Minerals Commission, and all the conceivable stakeholders in this business. And there was a general consensus that it is time for them to move. And they are not just being moved in vacuum. Government has spent resources to identify areas. In fact, AngloGold Ashanti has also surrendered some areas to government, which government has made available. After all, government could have given it out to large-scale miners to make some money for the state, but chose to give it to the people who were there.
So now you've persuaded them, if they don't move, what's going to happen?
Well, I thought you were going to say if persuasion fails, something applies. So I don't know what happens, but the Minerals Commission cannot guarantee that they will not be moved by other means. We are using peaceful means. We have dialogued. We think we've done enough with them, and we enjoyed the relationship that we really have. They are very peaceful. They are very reasonable people, especially their leadership. But it is time for them to exit the place.
And in another development, Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Ekos Piu-Gabra, says the inability of the Commander Sugar Factory to obtain raw materials for production of sugar can be attributed to activities of illegal mining activities. Now, he noted the activities of illegal miners had destroyed water bodies which could serve as fertile grounds for sugarcane. Now, sugarcane plantations in the central region and surrounding villages that serve the factory. Dr. Piu-Gabra made the revelation in Accra during the launch of the National Corporate Social Responsibility Policy for the country.
I'm saying, for example, it's an area where the Minerals Commission has a lot of responsibility, and where all of us, I'm sure, are concerned about damage to water bodies. For example, Ministry of Trade and Industry, all are aware about the Commander Sugar Factory that has been built, and the fact that we need a lot of sugar from an area not far from the factory. But after visiting many hundreds of villages and towns in the area, we found that a lot of the water bodies, which would normally have nourished sugar cane plants to create the plantations, these water bodies have been, environmentally damaged by illegal miners operating whether upstream or downstream, and therefore it makes it difficult then to plant more sugarcane along the river banks to feed the factory. So these are the kind of direct impact that some of these environmentally and sustainable activities have, not to mention issues of drinking water for the people in that area.
And in other stories, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC, says it would continue to leverage investments into the manufacturing sector to grow the economy. The sector, according to the center's second quarter report, was expected to create close to 2,500 jobs, the highest among all other sectors. Reviewing the center's activities so far this year, CEO of GIPC, Mawena Treba, reiterated the center's resolve to attracting sustainable investments and build the capacity of local firms through partnerships to create jobs in line with government's development agenda.
I'm always quick to reinforce the key message that it is very much a team effort to promote investment opportunities in Ghana. So our collaborations with various ministries and government agencies, particularly the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, the Ghana Free Zones Board, obviously the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're all focused on ensuring that we're attracting the right quality of foreign direct investment into the country. And I think that as we continue to redirect our efforts and get very specific, we'll continue to see more investments coming in those areas that are really important for us from a development standpoint. So a lot of the attention on the manufacturing sector will continue to be sustained, and obviously encouraging more and more Ghanaian companies to look at expanding their operations to serve the sub-region, to serve international consumers. Those are things that we believe will help us to enhance the development agenda, which is really creating more jobs through producing more that we can, first of all, use to serve our domestic market, but also serve the international market as well.
Still on Business Live, organizers of the third Vodafone African SME Summit have added a new innovation Biz Africa app, which will allow participants and speakers to discuss issues that are likely to emerge out of the summit that need further business-to-business meetings. In an interview with Joy Business after the launch of the third African Vodafone Summit, convener of the event, Yao Zamwa, explained that this year's summit will focus on innovation to grow SMEs.
This year, we've introduced the Biz Africa app. So what the Biz Africa app enables SMEs to do is we congregate professions and companies or organizations so that they can interact among themselves on the app. So let's assume somebody wanted to do a conference and he needed tailors. We aggregate tailors, you can engage them. You can engage them on the app. Then also, when you go onto our website, that is www.africansme.org, you can register to be a member of the African SME organization, and through that you can get mentorship, you can get training, you can also get access to the tools on our website, you can get access to the presentations and papers that our speakers will deliver. Our theme is entrepreneurship becoming a ready business. I think our world, business, Africa, Ghana is in a rapid change. Things are changing from artificial intelligence to new media, to human genome, to 3D printing, and all of those. These are key factors which are going to affect businesses. Now, what we are asking businesses is, are they ready for the new frontier of growth in their businesses? Are they ready to create sustainable businesses? And we have brought together more than 15 speakers from across the continent and also the world. So we have speakers from Ghana, majority of our speakers from Ghana, but we have speakers from China, from India as well.
So this year's Vodafone SME Summit is slated for October 13 to the 14th, 2016 at the College of Physicians and Surgeons here in Accra. Now, the IMF is asking Ghana not to be complacent after making progress in reducing its debts in relation to the value of the economy. The latest IMF fiscal monitor has projected an end-of-year debt to GDP for Ghana at 66%. This should mean that the debt to GDP ratio may not witness any significant increase till the end of this year, or it could go up and reduce again by the end of the year. Figures released by the Bank of Ghana puts the total public debt as of June 2016 at 110 billion cedis, representing 66% of Ghana's GDP. Speaking to Joy Business after the launch of the Fiscal Monitor Report in Washington, D.C., Deputy Director of Fiscal Affairs at the IMF, Abdelhak Senhachi, said the current debt levels are still high and must be reduced further.
Certainly, the Ghanaian government should be commended for putting in place a reform program that is stabilizing the economy and bringing debt down. However, it's still, I think, business unfinished, right? Debt still remains very high, even at 66% is quite high. And to achieve the 66%, it still needs to put in place a very ambitious program, both in terms of the macro stabilization part, but also in terms of structural reforms. So I would say progress has been made, but still more work to be done.
What are some of the things that they should also be doing? Because some are saying that we could get off the paddle if we don't monitor things closely.
What I would say is that you need consistency in terms of implementation of the reforms, and you need to continue essentially with the reform program. Indeed, if you basically were to reverse some of the measures, the outcome will not be guaranteed. So I would suggest essentially continuing with the program and continue with the successful implementation in the recent years.
Revenue has also been a very challenging situation for government. What should be the way our expenditure cuts is the way forward in trying to control the debts?
I think both, but certainly on the adjustment will be tilted more toward expenditure, although revenue measures are important as well, and we have called for more of the broadening of the tax base and making essentially the tax system a little bit fairer as well.
Meanwhile, the projection by the fund in terms of Ghana's debt to GDP ratio reducing might support earlier claims by government that it will not cross the dreaded 70% mark by December 2016. According to the Statistical Service, the monetary value of the economy at the end of last year is 138 billion Ghana cedis. Now, moving on, the Minister of Petroleum, Emmanuel Ama Kofi-Boa, has disclosed that Ghana will soon be exporting some petroleum products to Liberia in the coming months. This follows the supply of gasoline and gas oil to the landlocked countries of Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali from the Bolgatanga Petroleum Depot of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company. President Mahama stated in his State of the Nation address this year, the vision of the government was to make Ghana the hub for the distribution of petroleum products in the West African sub-region. Now, Principal Research Officer of the Institute of Energy Security, Richmond Roxon, shares his thoughts on the marketplace.
I think it's a welcoming news because this was something we've been doing we're doing before. We had challenges and eventually we stopped. So when talk came back on stream, we started exporting to our neighbors again. So it's good news. We think that Ghana as a country must lead the way when it comes to the sub-region. We want to be the hub when it comes to energy in the sub-region. So it's a welcoming news. When TOR was established, Ghana hadn't discovered oil, but we were refining crude and we're exporting to our neighbors. Fortunately for us, this year we've had TOR coming back on stream from February. And when Nigeria was in crisis, Ghana had to go to the aid of Nigeria. Now that we have other fields coming on board, like the 10 fields and the rest, we are hopeful that we'll find our own crude by November, December, thereabout. So when we find our own crude, that means with time we can be exporting more. If you listen to the address by the minister and also by the Chief Executive Officer of BOST, he also made it known that that is what we're looking for it to go.
That was Richmond Roxon. He is a Principal Research Officer at the Institute of Energy and Security. This is on Business Live, and moving on, the Chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, NDPC, and former Finance Minister, Professor Kwesi Botwe, has charged the Bank of Ghana to urgently take steps to address what he deems the misalignment of policies guiding the banking sector. Now, this, according to him, is the surest way to grow not only the financial sector, but the economy at large. He was speaking at a public lecture organized by Standard Chartered Bank as part of its 120th anniversary, where he preferred some solutions. But first, let's hear from Chief Executive of Standard Chartered Bank, Mr. Kweku Bedu-Addo.
So after 120 years, are banks relevant to the lives and well-being of the general Ghanaian populace? I'm talking about jobs, food security, health and well-being. Do we have a financial sector that is responsive to the real needs and aspirations of Ghanaians in the 21st century? Everywhere that I've asked this question, the answer is a resounding no. Banks often take a disproportionate amount of blame for any perceived reluctance or inertia to provide access, especially to small businesses and individuals, or for prohibitive interest rates when they eventually make credit available. Is it that the banks are simply insensitive or blind to the investment deficit into productive and economic value-adding activities within the economy and their obvious benefit to society? I say this is not the case. The reality is a bit more nuanced with complexity that is not immediately visible to the casual observer.
Former Finance Minister Professor Kwesi Botwe now prefers some solutions.
I believe that the solution must start from a clearer statement of public policy, a better indication of what the national plan is, a stable policy framework from which the banks can obtain the necessary guidance and therefore deploy the skills and the talents that they have. This has often been missing because our policy space is characterized by a substantial body of discoordination, misalignment, even within different ministries. So, we are seeking to correct that by spawning a long-term plan at the National Development Planning Commission. I know some people were terrified at the thought of 40 years. So on. Well, except it's not that long. If we had planned 20 years ago that we wouldn't want to have any cities or big towns that are littered with open gutters or that lack a central sewage system. If we had planned that 20 years ago, we wouldn't have them today.
All right, so those were some developments coming in from business, coming from the local front. And that's still on Business Live. Now, it's 2 months to the general elections, and investors are skeptical about carrying out investment projects. Speaking to Joy Business, Deputy Managing Director for Société Générale, Francois Marchal, says investors are waiting to see some stability before committing themselves. That's on Interview of the Day.
One may say that with the elections upcoming, it seems investors are quite, a bit hesitant when it comes to investing. What would you say from your perspective?
Well, there is a bit of wait and see, of course, but the key thing is that the projects are there. Then the question is, when is it the best time to execute the project? And probably there is always a bit of wait and see everywhere when the elections are coming. But the people are still having development projects and investments in the country. Clearly, one of the key factors as well is the very high cost of borrowing. So which is people are probably waiting for a bit of relief in terms of interest rate before investing as well. So it's not only the election, but the whole evolution of the economy, which has now stabilized, and people wait to see when it and at which pace it takes off again before committing.
And that will be it for Business Live for today. And once again, I do appreciate your company on the program today. And I hope you do join me again same time tomorrow. Meantime, you can tweet your comments at Joy Business on Facebook. Joy Business is our page. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Have a very good evening.